Good morning, church family. So I'm going to just say this. I think Patton mentioned about having the projector up here and watching the chords. One of the things that we had to do because we're fixing a projector, hopefully, is shift what is normally on the right side to the left. And I am just afraid of how much that will actually affect me. If I reach over to put my clicker down and I just drop it here, we're just going to keep rolling. I hope I just do it with the clicker and not like my iPad or my Bible or something to that effect. But it's going to come. I'm going to try to do something, and it's on the left. And for those of you on my left, it's going to be even harder for me to recognize and preach to you guys. So just assume everything that I'm saying is for you as well. All right? So just assume that as well. I'm excited because, as already mentioned, we are in the Christmas season. I love the Christmas season. I love putting up the decorations. It's sometimes what I've realized is, as maybe I'm getting older, it takes me a little bit longer to do it than it used to, or maybe I'm just more busy. I'm not sure, but I still delight in it. I love putting up Christmas lights. I love that my wife takes care of most of the inside. I take care of the outside, and I love so many things about this season. I really, really love preaching in this season. I was afraid early on in my preaching career that whenever it would come to Christmas and I would do a Christmas series, I'd be like, well, do I have to do the same series every year? Because it's the same material block that we focus on. And what I've learned is that there's a lot of intriguing and interesting ways to talk about the greatest story. And I love that. And so we are starting a new series that isn't focused so much upon the Christmas story as it's written in the start of the gospel accounts with the shepherd and with the manger and all those things. We're actually going to back up a little bit. We're going to take a view of all the gifts that God has given us. Because so often right now, where we are focused on is the gifts that we will give someone else, or maybe the gifts that we will get. In fact, in our family, we're asked, hey, put together some sort of Christmas list, which usually means an Amazon wish list, but like put together some Christmas list so that people know what you want, what it is. And so we're looking at it selfishly in some ways. Well, here's what I want. And I think that there's a merit of that's okay to that. But I really delight in seeing other people's lists. But if I'm honest, what I really enjoy looking at other people's lists is like, ooh, I could add that to my list. I want that too. I didn't know that I wanted that. And that's what happens in this season is we get so focused upon the gifts that I'm going to give, the gifts that I might receive, that we can miss what God has already given us. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this series. And I'm going to start with a quote from Bob Hope. Bob Hope is one of the greatest comedians of the last century, I believe. As he was getting along in years, he once commented that he was reading once, and he was astonished to discover this. In the last 24 hours, he said, my heart beat over 103,000 times. My blood traveled 168 million miles. I breathed 23,400 times. I inhaled 438 cubic feet of air. I ate 3 pounds of food, drank 2.9 pounds of liquid, as he said. I perspired 1.43 pints, gave off 85.3 degrees of heat, generated 450 tons of energy. I spoke 4,800 words. I moved 750 major muscles, and I exercised 7 million brain cells. And then he said, it's no wonder that I'm tired all the time. Right? Like, that's just a normal day for people. Just living is all of that. And it's crazy how much goes on just in our 24 hours that we never really think on. Augustine, long before Bob Hope, Augustine once said this. He says, people travel to wander at the height of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of rivers, at the vast compass of an ocean, at the circular motion of the stars. And they pass by themselves without wandering. I think he's on to something. I think Augustine was right. Most of us don't realize just how intricate and wonderfully life has been made for us. How wonderfully we have been made. I did some research, I did some reading into this, and I was amazed at the uniqueness and really the intricacy of our bodies. Let me give you a few examples. 1 square inch of your skin. In 1 square inch, you would find 20 blood vessels, 65 muscles, 78 nerves with 1,300 nerve endings, 650 sweat glands, and 19,500,000 cells. And that's just 1 square inch of your skin. Let's look at the brain. In your brain, it weighs about 3 pounds, but it stores 100 trillion bytes of information over the course of 70 years. That is the storage capacity of 12.5 terabytes. Or if you're of a certain generation, of a refined generation, that roughly equals 500,000 sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. Which, by the way, if you were to stack those, they would stretch 442 miles. That's how much information that your brain can do, and it does all of it on less power than a 100-watt bulb. Pretty impressive. Your brain services 45 miles of nerves. They send impulses through the body rapidly at 325 miles per hour. That's how quick the impulses are going. Your nerve system is so sensitive. It's so sensitive that you're able to feel on your fingertips or your face or anything like that. I could give you the mathematical thing here, but I'm just going to skip. Basically, you can feel the weight of a bee wing falling upon your face. That's how sensitive your skin is. Then there's your ears. If you've ever played piano, you know that piano has 88 keys. And it's not the full range of what you can do, but basically it was just considered the right range for a piano. 88 keys, that's a lot of notes that you can hit. Your ear, one ear, has 1,500 keys. That's how much you can hear, all the things that you can hear. It's so finely tuned, your ear is so finely tuned, that maybe back in its prime, you could hear your own blood vessels. You could hear it. Your eyes are capable of seeing a small candle flame 30 miles away in the right conditions. Your nose can smell 1 drop of perfume diffused through a 3-bedroom apartment. Or you can smell your dad in the same space. That's how finely tuned your nose is. Turn with me in your Bibles to Psalm 139. We're going to be in Psalm 139 today. I've got a couple of these verses that are up on the screen, and then we will read together from our physical Bibles here in just a second. But I want you to have it in front of you to see broader context of what's going on in this psalm attributed to David. And he says this in Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. Now, I'm sure that David did not realize all the facts that I just gave you about what's going on in our bodies, the intricacy of the inner workings of our bodies. Pretty sure David didn't know how many miles of blood vessels we have. But something caught his attention. Maybe he was out there with the sheep. He's holding his shepherd's staff, and he just looks at his hand and sees something that he's like, wow, God really did something amazing whenever he made us. And maybe he starts looking at the lines on his palm and maybe even the fingerprints. And maybe he's realized, hey, those look different than my dad's. Did God really not do copy and paste? Did he make me unique? I don't know what it was that David that drew him into this idea, but it was so much so that he says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And then he continues and says, my frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. David was so impressed of the wonder of God and the wonder of God's gift of life that he spoke of being woven together. Kind of this language of the imagery of a craftsman, a master craftsman who is skillfully weaving a beautiful and colorful tapestry. You say that's what's happened before anyone else saw it. Before any human eyes had laid gaze upon him, God was crafting him. It was remarkable. What David is saying is basically, this didn't just happen by accident. This is purposeful. That when God created me, He did it with purpose, not some cosmic accident. And if it's on purpose, that means I have value. That means I have worth. And the reason David would come to that conclusion is how he starts this psalm. So Psalm 139, looking now at verse 1. This is from the New Living Translation. O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down, when I stand up, you know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. Which is a scary verse for some of us. Lord, go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I encourage you as I continue to go ahead and keep Psalm 139 open and just glance at it. If you get bored with what I'm saying, read Psalm 139. You won't be bored there. David had arrived at his conclusion that he was a valuable individual because he recognized that he was created by God. It was God who gave value to life. It is God who gave him worth. And without God, he would have no value. See, this is one of the problems in our world. This is where the application sets in of Psalm 139 for us today is if God didn't create us, or maybe rather I should say it like this, if you believe that God did not create us, if that's something that you believe, then you have a problem. You see, you still have to go with an understanding that my life has some sort of meaning, has some sort of worth, but now I don't know how to attribute that. I don't know where to point why I have value or I have worth. And we are dealing with that in our society right now, is that so many people don't feel like their life is valuable, or they don't feel like someone else's life is valuable, and so they're willing to take their own life, take someone else's life, or just live a devalued life themselves. In our culture, we have progressively removed God from our laws, from our morals, from our understandings of how we function in a society. God and His standards have become constantly challenged by humanistic standards and evolutionary teaching and whatever else is going on. And as a result, here's just one result of this, is that right now, it is against the law to kill a baby eagle or damage its egg. You know that, right? I mean, it's a sacred symbol of the United States. If you were to kill a baby eagle or to damage its egg, it is a huge offense. But ironically, if you were to do the same to a human, it's even funded in some parts. It's not just against the law, it's even promoted by some laws. And maybe that will be changed, and I'm not necessarily taking a political statement here. I'm just saying this has changed. And this is a logical follow-up to what has been happening in our world. is that when we don't see God as the creator, God the one giving value into life, if we don't see that, then what options do we have? What are we going to look at for this life? If God hasn't created us, then there's no rational foundation to believe that there's any difference between an animal or a plant and a human or anything else. So one of the popular views that society has gravitated for is a world that is governed by a concept known as utilitarianism. Utilitarianism basically believes that people or things are only valuable if they are useful. That they're by their use, which explains the eagle. The eagle's useful because it's the national symbol. And we need to protect it. We need to make sure that it thrives and continues. But some humans, according to utilitarianism, are not useful. Some humans can't give back to society. Some humans, they are born in such a way that they may not ever be able to be a functioning adult. Utilitarianism, that's the idea, is that if they can't function in society, what good are they? And this leads to the ideas of even saying, well, you've reached a certain age, you're not really helping society anymore, you're becoming a leech on society. We would do us all a favor by just simply pulling your plug. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous and harsh, except that this is what is happening in our world. Is that we have gone so far away from the understanding of what God has given, the gift that God has given, that we, for our seeking of value, have come to the conclusion that the only thing that we can understand value by is what someone gives us, their usefulness to me. Obviously, God condemns that kind of thinking, because to God, all creation has value. We can look at this at the very beginning. Whenever he creates everything, it's clear that he's putting value on it, especially whenever he says, at the end of every day, he says, it is good. That's a value understanding. That God has ascribed value to creation. And then he goes on in Genesis 1:27, he says, so God created human beings in his own image. If it's not enough to say it's good, he says, I'm going to put my image in it. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Humanity has something that in Latin is the imago Dei, the image of God, and all humans bear resemblance to their Father. Now, there's a lot of question about exactly what that means. What is that image? Is it some physical trait? Is it some trait of our being? What exactly is it? If you have more question on that, we're going to be talking a little bit about that next week in the class that Rusty and I are teaching in the gym. It's a really fascinating discussion to dive into, but the point that I want you to hear from the image of God is that every person has value. You see, it's the gift of life. And it's a gift that is worth protecting. This is why James would even say that pure and undefiled or genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. James highlights two groups of people that utilitarianism shuns, that says they're not worth it. They can't offer anything back. So why have them? See, God considers all life having value. It is his gift. Our lives are a gift from God. Only you have the kinds of abilities you have. Only you have the kinds of skills that you have. Only you have the potential that you have. No one else in this room has the same potential that you do. No one else has the exact combination of abilities and skills and knowledge and potential. And I will say, as a society, we are less than when you don't reach your potential. As a whole society, we're less than. Not even to mention, as a church, we are less than if you don't come to your potential. As a whole society, we are less than. Now, there are those who say, I get it. Preacher, I hear you. I understand that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. My body is a biological wonderland, or something, whatever that singer said. I know that God created me, but, I just don't feel that valuable. Why? Well, we may think in this nice little gift exchange called life, I didn't get such a good gift. We may look in the mirror and say, I'm too old, too poor, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good looking enough, I'm not talented enough, I'm not whatever, fill in the blank. I'm not enough. And so I get in theory that God made everything and fearfully and wonderfully made. I get that, but I see it in other people. Whenever I look in the mirror, I don't see it in myself, and I understand that kind of thinking. Just looking around at all of us collectively. Some of us are old. Some of us are weak. Some of us are intellectually challenged. Some of us struggle. But see, that kind of thinking fails to take into account that God does not ascribe value based upon our strengths. We often look at it saying, the reason I have value is because. Most of you know that I am pursuing a doctorate degree. And there may be questions as to why. Is it for my own pride so that one day I can be Dr. Wiggins, which sounds really weird. No, it's not for that. Is it for my own knowledge's sake? I hope that's a benefit of it. But see, if I'm honest with myself, there are times that I think I will have more value if I'm just smarter. I will have more value if I do more. My legacy will last longer, meaning I will have more value if my ideas are passed on to the next generation. See, we fall into this trap, don't we? Of trying to say my value is based upon my strengths, what I can do. And we fall into the temptation that the society is laying a trap for us, saying it's only based upon what you do. But see, our value depends upon the Creator and what He made. Our worth is increased in direct relation to how much we allow God to work within us. It's not by our own strengths, it's even by our weaknesses that Paul would even say that God is glorified. That through our weaknesses, these things are even manifest even more. It's not by my own ability, because if God's going to do something, He can do it without me. But what's really cool is He wants to use us even in our weaknesses because He likes us. He likes you. He wants to partner with you. Paul would say this in 1 Corinthians 1. He says, remember, dear brothers and sisters, that few of you were wise in the world's eyes or powerful or wealthy when God called you. I always love that that's in Scripture. He just kind of throws some shade on people like, yeah, not many of you were smart. Like, that doesn't win friends and gain influence. But instead, verse 27, God chose things the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And He chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful. God chose things despised by the world, things counted as nothing at all, and used them to bring to nothing what the world considers important. Pause just for a moment. Put some flesh on this for us. Y'all know that we have several families that have kids with special needs in our church family. However we may define that. And a lot of times it's a struggle of figuring out what do we do with them? How does this work? But I challenge you and I encourage you to hang out with any one of them. Just hang out with them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to corral them in whatever. Hang out like you would with anybody. Hang out with them. And when you do, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn that there is some unique part of understanding of this life, of how things work, that they have that you have taken for granted. They're going to be able to teach you something about God, about life, if you just let them. Because God uses even them. Right? Because if God can use me, what makes me any more special than anyone else? Nothing. You have the image of God, I have the image of God, and God wants to use you. You see, in the big scheme of things, you might think, well, according to this world, I don't have much to offer. And that may be true. According to this world, you don't have much to offer. But thank God we don't live according to this world. Because according to your Father, you're special. You are beautiful. You are amazing. God gave you the gift of life, but I will even say it this way. God gave the rest of us the gift of you. It's kind of the beauty of how the image of God works, is that it's both an individual and a collective thing. Is that whenever God created you, He said, you're going to bless the rest of this creation. You've got this potential within you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have purpose. And the reason you can come to that conclusion is because it is your Father who gave you life. Your Father in heaven. So this season, as I said at the beginning, as we focus a lot of times on the best gift for myself, the best gift for someone else to receive, or whatever, we often become so selfish. We become so hurried in this season to make sure that we're doing all the things. And that's why I started this series, is so that we can take a step back. We just breathe it in and recognize that God has already given us some absolutely incredible gifts. And He wants us to use those gifts. To use those gifts for His glory. To live as He has called us to live. And when we wonder about the gifts that He has given, we don't have to look very far. I encourage you, I challenge you, that this evening, as you're getting ready for bed, brushing your teeth, whatever your routine is, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you've taken off the makeup, your hair's messed up or whatever, you're putting it in the nightcap or whatever you got. That's a different idea, but regardless of what you're doing in your closing of the day routine, in that moment, you may not look the prettiest, you may not look the most handsome, but I want you to take a moment and look at yourself in the mirror and just marvel of what God has done to make you who you are. Not in arrogance, not saying, oh man, as Mac Davis, oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I mean, not that. What I'm saying is look at yourself with God's eyes and say, hey, I don't know how He did it all. But I'm going to go to bed tonight celebrating the gift that God gave me, the gift of life. And when I wake up tomorrow, I want to use this gift for His glory, to bless those around me with the life that I have. Because when God gives a gift, He expects it to be used. And so this morning, if you have any needs For one, if you need to know how to use the gift that God has given you, if you're struggling with your own self-doubt, if you're struggling with some of those demons that are inside about thinking that you're not worth it, that you're not worthy enough, then I want to encourage you that this invitation is for you. The elders and ministers will surround this auditorium. If you don't feel like moving forward, I get that. I understand that. Head to the back. An elder will catch you there if you need time to talk and to pray and to recognize that you are loved. Not just by God, but by this church family. If you need anything, now's a great time to let it be known. Would you come as we stand and sing together?